How's going guys, welcome to the channel. I'm back with another banger for you all. Huge shout out to OFion for this story. If you wants to see awesome fanfiction like this, don't forget to subscribe. Now let's get into the video. The unbelievably dense ball of black and white chakra flew at the blonde man at a speed greater than Mach 6. Nevertheless, it was easily followable to the fastest man in the world from his vantage point. He stood atop a mountain with the faces of him and his predecessors carved upon it, a monument that showed the villagers that they would be protected. The man's hand fell to his side, grabbing his signature kunai from his pouch on his leg and spun it by the ring in his hand. All the while the Hokage's genius mind began to calculate variables and making in a plan at a speed so fast, the world slowed down to a crawl in front of him. A cocky grin stretched across his face as he raised the kunai in front of him. Hiration, Dorai. Flying thunder god, guiding thunder. A barrier surrounded him and the mountain just in time to block the Bijadama and teleport the blast from its target to a nearby field that erupted in a burst of chakra. The explosion would have been more than enough to destroy the village. The Hokage frowned as he stared at his opponent. He was facing the Kyubi no Yoko, nine-tailed demon fox, the strongest of the Bijou and a being of unimaginable power. Earlier that evening, the Kyubi had been ripped from his wife's seal and placed under a genjutsu cast by the Sharingan, a powerful dojutsu. It was then ordered to attack Konohagakure only for the control to be destroyed. Nevertheless by then, shinobi had been attacking the Kyubi with jutsu of all 5 elements, weapons of all kinds and Haiden clan jutsu in an attempt to get the Bijou away. In the end this only angered the chakra monster, sending it on a rampage that was unstoppable. The Hokage cursed his luck. A Bijou was not a simple beast that could simply be killed by fire or sharp force trauma, as a Bijou was one of the few beings on this earth that could claim to be truly immortal. There was only one way to defeat a Bijou. There was only one option left. The man's blue eyes shone with an almost oracle-like knowledge of his future, and a warm nostalgic smile appeared on his face as he looked at the village below. The village who had taken in an orphan, his only belongings being a small bag and a card with his name on it, Minato. The village that had trained him, encouraging his talent and passion before enrolling him in a ninja academy. The village where he met his mentor, a crazy pervert with white hair who was the closest thing he ever had to a father. The village where he met the wise old monkey would act like the grandfather he never knew. The village that had introduced him to a loud and passionate girl with beautiful red hair. The village where he married that beautiful girl and told her that he would spend the rest of his life loving her. The village where his son would be born and would live. This is the village that his son would go get ramen. This is the village where his son would become a shinobi just like him, claiming he would become the Hokage just like his mother had before him. This is the village where he lived his life and where his life would be remembered. He began to flash through hand signs, a tear running down his face as he stared at his small newborn son who was sitting on an altar below him. He looked so small from here, but Minato could still make out the spiky blonde hair and the small whisker marks on his cheeks. Kyubi. This is my village. My family. These are my brothers, sisters, children. I am Minato Namikaze, Yondaime Hokage of Konohagakure no Sato, and I will protect that the king, until my last breath, the blonde-haired hero roared before forming a final seal. Shiki Fuin. Dead Reaper consuming seal. With a gasp, a blonde-haired boy shot up, shaking and shivering with cold sweat. His blue eyes were wide and full of confusion. Gigi, old man, has some explaining to do. The next day, the boy rolled out of his twin-sized bed with a groan. His sleeping mask had slipped off his head when he had awoken from his sleep last night, and his white and orange pajamas felt weird from the amount he had sweated last night. Great, laundry. The 6-year-old mumbled under his breath. Some people might wonder why a 6-year-old was doing his own laundry. The answer was that 6-year-old had no parents. His name was Naruto Uzumaki, and he was an orphan of Konohagakure no Sato, the village hidden in the leaves. Luckily his Gigi had been able to get him an apartment after he had been kicked out of the orphanage due to lack of space earlier that year. Speaking of his Gigi, Naruto ran to his closet, grabbing one of the many orange jumpsuits inside and throwing it on. They were one of the cheapest articles of clothing the store had, which was essentially if he wanted to have ramen every day. Not to mention, he liked orange. As he raced to the Hokage's office at the top of the academy, he was suddenly struck with a longing as he reached out his senses to detect an invisible ANBU running across the rooftop. Yes, Naruto had a sensing ability. It was apparently a rare gift, but Naruto hardly ever used it. Although it did help when he was running away from the victims of his pranks. Those poor unfortunate souls. After running at a speed many civilians would consider fast but shinobi would consider a leisurely jog, he reached the large circular building called by many to be the heart of Konohagakure. It was easily the tallest building in the village and would be the tallest feature were it not for the even larger Hokage monument. It radiated warmth, and the kanji on the front, that red fire, ignited the feeling of home in his chest. This was where he belonged, and that hat would be his one day. Naruto entered the first floor of the building and walked up to the secretary at the front, standing on his tippy toes so that he could see over the desk. I would like to see Hokage Gigi. The bored-looking woman looked up at the clock on the wall for a second before shrugging. He should be free. Thank you, Naruto said with a big foxy grin. From there, he raced up the spiral staircase on the right side instead of the hallway on the left, which lead to the academy, until he reached the top. Naruto took a deep breath before knocking on the solid wood door 3 times. There was a pause before he heard 3 similar knocks from inside. The young boy smiled widely as he threw open the door, clearing the room in 2 steps and leaping over the desk, crashing into the figure behind it with a flying tackle hug. Oi! This old man isn't as young as he used to be, the man yelled. Naruto's smile dropped slightly, thinking he had heard his grandfather figure. The man's brown eyes twinkled with amusement as he gave a hearty chuckle and wrapped the young blonde boy with a hug. Long time no see, Naruto-kun. The man was shorter than the average Konoha shinobi and his tan skin was wrinkled, but that shouldn't make you think that that man was weak or even worse, feeble. No, that man was Hiruzen Sarutobi, and he was the Sandaime Hokage, 3rd Hokage, not to mention the most powerful man in all of the Land of Fire. Naruto stepped back and stood in front of the Hokage, who sat down in his chair. Something happened last night. The Hokage leaned back in his chair, stroking his white beard. Tell me. Naruto's face was a flurry of confusing emotions. I had a dream about the Sandaime Hokage. Hiruzen raised an eyebrow. Well, he is your hero, correct? Naruto looked down in sadness, refusing to look the Sandaime in the eye as he asked his question. Is the Sandaime my father? Anbu, out, the Hokage ordered suddenly with a wave of his hand, and immediately, Naruto felt 2 chakra signatures leave the room. Silence seals, activate. What makes you say that? The Hokage said, his face betraying nothing. He looked down at me when he was talking about his son. Naruto explained. He then began to tell Hiruzen about his dream, all the while the Hokage kept the greatest poker face in all of Konoha. Same blonde hair and the same hairstyle. Same blue eyes. Naruto's eyes were flooded with tears. He's my father, and you never told me. Hiruzen looked at a portrait of Minato that sat in his office next to Hashirama and Tobirama Senju's portraits. So much had changed since the 2 Senju brothers led Konoha. All they had to worry about was making sure the village grew and to defeat the enemies that threatened them. So much had changed. Naruto, it's more complicated than you think. Hiruzen began, only to be cut off by Naruto slamming his hands onto the table, his face streaked with tears. Then how complicated is it? The boy screamed. Naruto sniffled before rubbing the tears from his eyes and backing away from the desk, his bottom lip quivering. The Hokage sighed as he bit his thumb, causing it to bleed slightly before rubbing the blood on one of the drawers on his desk, pulling out a folder. With a flick of his wrist, Hiruzen sent it sliding across his desk and in front of Naruto, the front reading Naruto Uzumaki. With teary eyes, Naruto flipped open the front cover to see 3 pictures atop his birth certificate. One was of a man Naruto instantly recognized even without his famous white haori. Blonde spiky hair, blue eyes, narrow face, it was the Sandaime Hokage. The other picture was of a woman he had never seen before. Her face was slightly round like Naruto, and her grin was the same. She had beautiful long crimson red hair that went down to her waist and eyes that sparkled with the same mischievousness that Naruto's did whenever he had a prank planned. You are correct, Minato Namikaze, the Sandaime Hokage was your father, the Hokage explained carefully. Your mother was Kushina Uzumaki, the Akai Chishio no Habanero, red hot-blooded habanero. You knew this entire time and you never told me. Naruto slammed his hands onto the table in anger and all he saw was red. He had never been so furious with his grandfather figure in his whole life. Your father was so powerful and had so many enemies that you would be assassinated before you could ever learn to defend yourself. Hiruzen responded. Naruto stopped, his anger subsiding as he saw the logic of the statement. Had any one of the Yandame's enemies knew that he had a surviving legacy, the child would be assassinated before their first birthday. The family members of powerful shinobi were often powerful in their own right and could grow to become even more if left unchecked. It was obvious the panic that would be caused if it was discovered the son of the Yandame Hokage was alive and without the protection of either of his parents. If you want to see for yourself, I'll take a blood sample and send it to the lab to get tested. Then you can see who your family really is, the Hokage explained. It would be good to have Naruto's DNA on the database just in case, not to mention the fact that Hiruzen was worried. This was the first time in recorded history that the Kyuubi had been sealed inside a child since birth. Who knew the damage the Kyuubi could cause? One change in the genetic code and Naruto's chromosomes stopped producing a necessary enzyme that causes his entire body to shut down, and sparking another nine-tailed demon fox appearing in the middle of Konohagakure. Okay, GG. Naruto agreed after a second, not knowing the ulterior motive behind the test. A quick finger prick later and half a vial of blood was sealed away in a scroll and sent to the ANBU medical office. Hiruzen looked at the semi-melancholy Naruto and sighed, glancing down at the calendar in his desk. Why don't me and you go to a training ground? I could teach you a few things before you start the academy in 2 years. Okay. Let's go. Naruto yelled as he ran out the office, eager to do something besides talk about sad things. Hiruzen smiled as he walked out behind the boy, hoping the topic of his parents would not be the only thing on Naruto's mind. He was very wrong. Naruto ducked under a roundhouse kick and attempted to block a spinning back hook kick with his forearms only to be sent flying backwards from the strength behind it. He managed to land and roll to a standing position, his breath slightly ragged from the exhaustion. I'm impressed, Naruto-kun, the Hokage expressed. You're going to be even more impressed in a second. Naruto grinned as he bent his knees slightly. Konoha de Zenpu. Leaf Great Whirlwind. Hiruzen's eyes widened in surprise as he watched the young boy launch a low kick which the Hokage managed to block only to almost be struck by the sequential middle and low kicks aimed at him. A grunt escaped the elderly man's mouth as he spun to avoid the final kick of the sequence, a flying drop kick, but it was only his honed instincts that allowed him to dodge the kunai thrown at him. It appeared that Naruto had managed to fake that last kick and brought his outstretched right leg around, thus using the centrifugal force to rotate toward the off-guard Hokage, allowing him to launch multiple kunais at him while midair. With a frown, Naruto landed and stood up, his hands behind his head. Damn, I thought I had you there. You would have caught anyone that wasn't a jounin with that last maneuver. Where did you learn the Goken style? Hiruzen asked, brushing off any dirt that had appeared. I saw this weird teenager in a green jumpsuit running around the village, so I decided to follow him. He ended up fighting this other dude with silver hair and a face mask, and I managed to copy a few of the techniques, Naruto explained half-heartedly. From there it wasn't that hard to break into the shinobi sector of the Konoha library and find the beginner scrolls on Goken, Strong Fist. I had the basics down in a month. Although he didn't show it, Hiruzen Sarutobi had not been so surprised with a child's progress since he had met Orochimaru. Being able to copy what would without a doubt see and be ranked taijutsu after only seeing it once. Breaking into the Konoha library despite ANBU surveillance. Learning the basics of Goken in a month. Almost managing to strike him with Genin level taijutsu before using a stealth maneuver that was easily Chunin level. All without chakra. This could be a prodigy of the likes Konoha had never seen. Hiruzen stopped and realized what he had just said. Naruto had. What are you doing on the weekends, Naruto-kun? Nothing. Well, I would like to teach you how to become a shinobi, Hiruzen said with a smile. I see great promise in your chances of becoming a great shinobi for Konoha. Really? Naruto's eyes lit up as he hugged the old man. Thank you, Gigi. Thank you. I would like to wait for the results of your blood test to come in before I teach you any powerful techniques, Hiruzen explained. However, I can do one thing. The Hokage then sat down on the green grass of the training ground and gestured to the spot in front of him. Sit. Naruto raised an eyebrow which looked odd on his small face but obliged. Good, the Hokage said with a smile. It all begins with chakra. Chakra is the mixing of spiritual energy and physical energy into chakra, which is greater than either part separately. These two energies becoming more powerful will in turn make the created chakra more powerful. By molding this combination of these two energies, one can perform jutsu which can have effects like blasts of fire, jets of water, blades of wind, walls of earth and bursts of lightning. Hiruzen explained. He then made weird finger movements in Naruto's direction while making ghost noises. It can be used to make people relive their worst nightmares, seal away the most powerful of beasts, summon powerful animal allies and heal allies from the brink of death. So it's like water and fire? Naruto asked, which earned him a confused look from the professor. If you combine them you get steam which can then be harnessed to do work? The Hokage's jaw dropped. He, the professor and Shinobi no Kami had never thought of chakra in such a simple yet elegant way. After a second Hiruzen collected himself and coughed into his hand in attempt to return to the topic. Very good analogy, Naruto-kun. Hiruzen placed his hands together into a ram hand seal. Place your hands like mine and close your eyes. Naruto stared at the hand position for a second before mirroring it surprisingly well for the first try. Take a deep breath, Hiruzen explained, taking a deep breath to show Naruto. Naruto did as he was instructed, listening to the older man while staring into the darkness caused by his closed eyelids. Feel inside for something hidden, something that you had always felt was locked up inside of you. Free your wings, Hiruzen said. A dark thought ran through his mind as he thought about the other thing locked up inside of Naruto. Free your wings, but don't fly too high, Icarus. Naruto reached inside his soul, searching until he noticed something. Something bright and dark blue that was just on the edge of vision. Now that he noticed it, it was so obvious. He reached out a hand to it, basking in the warm reliance of the glow. If you have it, grab it. He heard the Hokage say and did as the elderly man said. With a smile, he grabbed the energy and hugged it close to him, never letting go as his mindscape dissolved. This was just in time for him to miss the glow of a bright red light in the other direction. Ah! Naruto roared, blue energy bursting from him. Hiruzen raised a robed arm to his face to block the flying dust. He knew that the child of an Uzumaki Jinchuriki and a Kage would have a lot of chakra, especially one whose coils had been expanding since birth due to the Kyuubi, but this was just as much as a genin. And the boy was only 6 years old. The Hokage then noticed the strain Naruto was under, so he jumped into action. You've unleashed the power. Now grab it even tighter and keep it under control. Naruto nodded and grabbed the energy that was rippling off of him like waves, pulling it closer and closer until it was suppressed inside him. It was then he opened his eyes. Vivid colors filled his field of vision like a fine painting that had always been in front of him, but he had never opened his eyes. Subtle sounds that he had never heard before were now like melodies made by the finest composer. How is this possible? Naruto asked, his mind blown. Chakra runs through a system similar to the circulatory system which pumps blood through your body. This means that chakra enters every part of your body which enhances your senses, Hiruzen explained. Is chakra as important as blood? Naruto asked. I suppose to a shinobi it is. To lose all your chakra is to lose your life, and while blood carries the nutrients to all the cells in the body, chakra is the energy that runs the body. Even worse, without chakra, a shinobi could not defend himself and the ones he cares for. So we use chakra to protect ourselves and the people we care about. It was an innocent question, but one that was so similar to the one a young white-haired boy with red lines under his eyes. Yes, we do, Naruto-kun. Konohagakure no Sato is one big family, and while people may ignore you or kids may not play with you, you must love and protect them as they are your family. Hiruzen said with a nostalgic smile. I always imagined that to believe in the will of fire was to believe in a king. Naruto tilted his head to the side in confusion. Like the Hokage? He's like a king. No, Naruto-kun, the king is the thing that you would give your heart and soul to protect. It is the thing you will protect with your last breath. Hiruzen said with a sad smile. Your father once told me when your mother was still pregnant that you were his king, and that he would sell his soul to the devil before he let you get harmed under his watch. Naruto looked down, tears welling around his eyes and threatening to fall into his grinning mouth as he began to laugh. That literal asshole. Hiruzen gave a chuckle. You're lucky your mom isn't here to hear you say that, or she would kick all our butts. Naruto leaned back onto his hands, staring into the even brighter blue sky and even greener leaves Konoha was known for. From what I hear about her, she would. Your mom was crazy, passionate and loud, but also kind and loving. The Hokage reminisced as he mirrored the young boy. Like you. Naruto grinned. You think so? Yes, Naruto-kun. You've got her personality, but you've got your dad's looks and potential, Hiruzen explained with a similar smile. You, Naruto Uzumaki, have the potential to be one of the greatest shinobi in history. Hokage-sama, you have to look at this. Hiruzen turned his chair around from where it was facing the window and faced the mouse-masked Anbu before him. She was not a normal Anbu, as she was not wearing a chest plate and instead was wearing a black lab coat over the normal Anbu uniform. The Anbu was not a simple sector of the Konoha Shinobi Corps. Within the Anbu, there was the Anbu Black Ops, a group of shinobi that had skills above that of a special jonin but below that of an elite jonin and were assigned missions thought to be too difficult or dark for normal jonin. Then there was the Anbu Medical Sect, which was known to perform top-secret medical research for the betterment of the village. What is it? The Hokage asked, curious over the results of the task he had assigned her 2 weeks ago. Without a word, the Anbu doctor handed over a manila folder that she had released from a blood seal on her forearm. Hiruzen immediately opened the file before his eyes widened in shock as he began to read the many revelations in the files. This is impossible. Suddenly there was a change in the feel of the air and the Anbu doctor's eyes widened in surprise. This is now a triple S-ranked secret. If you so even think about telling this, I will have a room in torture and interrogation with your name on it for life, the Hokage ordered, leaking enough killing intent on the Anbu medical officer to freeze her in place. Am I understood? Hi, the mouse-masked Anbu doctor feebly responded, her throat threatening to close on itself. Good, the Hokage said as he eased up on the killing intent. You are dismissed. In a flurry of leaves, the Anbu was gone without another word or order. Hiruzen leaned back in his chair, a groan escaping his mouth as he stared at the content of the files again. How could I not have known about this until now? I can do this. Naruto screamed for the 5th time that day. He stepped back a few paces before taking off, chakra sent to his legs and feet as he ran straight at a large tree. The tree was easily 40 feet tall and most likely a child of one of the original Konohan trees made by Hashirama Senju, the Shodame Hokage, but recently, several scratch marks marked the surface of the ancient tree. As Naruto reached the tree, he continued to run, instead stopping, and instead of crashing straight into the tree, he began to run up the side of the tree. Gravity had no effect on the young shinobi in training as he continued to run up the tree, passing the previous scratch marks and small cavities in the bark where he had been attempting to hammer out the exact amount of chakra necessary. Eventually, the young blonde boy reached the very top of the tree and managed to sling himself onto one of the sturdier-looking branches before the chakra in his feet gave out. I knew I could do it. Naruto mumbled under his breath as he leaned back against the tree trunk. The village looked peaceful from up there and the people looked like dolls living their lives without a care in the world. Naruto thought about the way he had been treated when he was a kid. He was never hurt by any of the villagers, but he could see the looks they gave him and prejudice they had against him at time. It hurt. It was like everyone was watching him, booing him from the sidelines and waiting for him to fail. But now Gigi wanted to train him, which meant he had someone who cared about what happened to him. Actually, he had 3 people who cared what happened to him now. He knew that even if 2 of them weren't around, they were still watching him and were probably cheering him on. Mom's probably being really loud up there. Naruto mused with a smile. He looked down at his small hands and clenched them into fists. I will make them proud. Hell is gonna freeze over before I let them down, Dadabayo. Naruto. The blonde boy looked down from his vantage point at the sound of the familiar voice to see a familiar man wearing a red kimono with a conical straw hat on his head. Coming down, Gigi. Naruto yelled down the tree before standing up. He took a deep breath and hoped that book on chakra enhancement was accurate as he stepped over the edge, falling down 40 feet. He began to plummet through the air until he was about 5 feet from the ground and 5 feet in front of Hiruzen. Then everything slowed. The world slowed to an almost crawl as Naruto's body coursed with chakra, ready to react at a moment's notice. This was one of the main differences between a shinobi and a civilian with taijutsu training, as a shinobi's body was much stronger due to their active chakra system. Their body could also become even more powerful with the help of chakra enhancement, which is when a shinobi flooded parts of their body with chakra, stimulating the muscles and nerves to react faster than a normal civilian's body ever could. This was the basis behind most nintaijutsu and the Reikage Raitan no Yoroi, lightning release armor, which stimulates the nerves and synapses of the user's body to a level beyond almost every other being alive. Once Naruto was a mere 3 inches from the ground, chakra discharged from the sole of his feet and through the soles of his shinobi sandals. This discharge of chakra resulted in an upwards push that slowed down Naruto's plummet to the point he was able to stop easily. Hiruzen began to applaud as Naruto stood up. Mastering the tree walking exercise in 3 days, impressive. Thank you, Naruto said with a smile. What's up, Gigi? We don't have another training session for another 4 days and I haven't even begun learning the water walking exercise. I have the results of the DNA test, but I would like for you to do something for me first, the Hokage explained. Naruto raised an eyebrow. What is it? Channel your chakra into this sheet of chakra paper until it glows blue, the Hokage explained as he handed Naruto a small square of white paper a bit smaller than his palm. Naruto looked confused but did as he was asked, channeling his chakra into the paper the same way he learned to channel chakra into his feet to stay on the tree. After a second or two, the paper glowed blue when suddenly it turned to dust so suddenly and quickly that it shocked Naruto and Hiruzen. It was not over as suddenly the fine dust powder was engulfed in flame before finally blowing away in a gust of wind. Incredible, I've never seen an earth affinity as powerful as that. Hiruzen mumbled, shocked by the events that had just transpired. 3 affinities at such a young age is unheard of. Not even I had 3 affinities before I was a genin. Naruto was just as shocked, although he was also incredibly confused. So what does that mean? It means that this is correct, Hiruzen explained as he pulled out a folder from his kimono. He handed it to Naruto, who opened up the sealed folder and began to read the contents, squinting for a second as he attempted to read the large words on the page. Suddenly he gasped as he reached some of the most important information he had ever seen. What is this? Hiruzen smiled. Nice to meet you, Naruto Uzumaki, son of Minato Namikaze the 4th Hokage, and Kushina Uzumaki the red-blooded habanero, grandson of Tsunade Senju the Slug Princess and Jiraiya the Toad Sage, grandson of Mu of the Dust Release, great-grandson of Hashirama Senju the 1st Hokage and great-grandnephew of Tobirama Senju the 2nd Hokage. What? Naruto's jaw was almost on the floor as his mind began to register what he had just heard and read. Is this a joke? It is not, the Hokage responded with a sigh and a shake of his head. It would be a lot less cleanup if it was a joke. Hiruzen gestured for the folder, and once it was back in his hand, reread the most important page. It appears that the database found a relation between Jiraiya and Tsunade in your blood as well as Mu, the knight-aimed Tsuchikage. But how is that possible? Naruto asked. When he expected to get the test back, he expected only to be reassured of his relation to his parents, but finding out he is related to every. I must talk to Jiraiya and Tsunade, but it appears that Minato Namikaze is actually the son of my 2 students, Hiruzen explained with a furrowed brow. And Mu, the knight-aimed Tsuchikage, was actually the father of your mother, which would explain her unusual chakra and the reason why her clan wanted her away from the village. Naruto shook his head slowly in disbelief as he looked once more through his file. This is insane. He glanced up at Hiruzen, who had a similar look of mild disbelief at what they had learned. So what does this all mean? It means that I wasn't joking when I said you have the potential to become one of the greatest shinobi in history, the Hokage said with a smile. With that he began to walk away from the training field, Naruto walking by his side. Hey Gigi, do you know if I'm related to you? Naruto asked suddenly. Hiruzen gave him a weird look. I do not believe you are, Naruto-kun, why do you ask? Because then I can officially say I'm related to all the Hokages, Naruto said with a huge grin. Hiruzen gave a hearty chuckle at the comment as he began to think. Naruto was related to 3 of the 4 Hokages as well as a Tsuchikage and 2 Sannin. Sadly, 4 out of direct family members were dead. The Hokage's eyes sparkled in amusement as he remembered something. Let's go. Huh? Naruto asked with a raised eyebrow. Where are we going? There's a man I want you to meet. Where is he? The hot springs, Hiruzen said, while refusing to make eye contact with Naruto. The young blonde boy face-bombed at the answer but nonetheless grabbed onto the Hokage's kimono. And with that, the two disappeared in a flurry of leaves. The Konoha hot springs were well known throughout the elemental nations as being perfect for shinobi to relax in and relax their muscles after a hard mission. Whenever shinobi from villages far away came to the village hidden in the leaves, they always made sure to stop at one of the greatest gifts the land of fire gave to its inhabitants. Nevertheless, the Konoha hot springs was also a dangerous place, as a creature lurked. A creature of unrivaled pervertedness. So where is this man? Naruto asked as they walked up to the building that surrounded the onsen. Is he inside? Hiruzen shook his head as he began to look around, searching for something before he stopped on a large tree that arched over the side of the building and over the onsen, providing shade for the people inside. The 70-year-old man walked up to the tree and stared at it for a second. It was incredibly large, about the size of the building itself, and its trunk looked to be extra strong from constant amount of water around it. That didn't stop the shinobi no Kami from lifting his leg up into a perfect chamber before extending a perfect side kick directly into the tree trunk. For a second there was silence when suddenly, there was a giant crack as one of the top branches of the tree snapped off and fell to the ground from 40 feet in the air. Whoa! Naruto exclaimed with wide eyes. How did you make only one branch fall down? I got lucky, Hiruzen responded with a straight face. The Hokage walked over to where the branch struck the ground and, groaning, Hiruzen kicked the branch lightly, earning another groan from the branch. Get up, Jiraiya. The branch suddenly shimmered as it suddenly became a man with long white hair. God damn it, sensei, you're trying to kill me. You're lucky I don't call Tsunade or she would kill you, Hiruzen pointed out. Touché, Jiraiya responded. Jiraiya was a tall man unlike his sensei with waist-length, spiky white hair tied back into a ponytail, with two shoulder-length bangs that framed both sides of his face. He also had red lines that ran down from his eyes and was wearing a horned forehead protector with the kanji for oil, which Naruto noticed as being odd as it was not the symbol for any known shinobi villages. Jiraiya was wearing a green short shirt kimono and matching pants, under which he wore mesh armor that showed out of the sleeves and legs of his outfit. His outfit was completed with hand guards, a simple black belt, traditional Japanese geta, wooden sandals, a red haori with two simple yellow circles on each side, and a large scroll on his back. How did he do that? Naruto asked his teacher. He hinged himself as a tree branch before standing on the tree facing downward so he could spy on the girls in the onsen, Hiruzen explained. What he didn't explain was that he was the one who taught Jiraiya that strategy of peeking. The apple doesn't fall too far from the tree, or in this case, the tree branch doesn't fall too far from the onsen. Okay, that didn't make much sense, but the point is there. Who's the gaki? Jiraiya asked. Hiruzen gestured with his head toward Naruto. Take another look. Jiraiya raised an eyebrow but did as his sensei asked. Then it all clicked into place. Spiky blonde hair, blue eyes, whisker marks, round face with a big mischievous grin. There was only one person left in the elemental nations with that description. You're Naruto? Jiraiya asked, gobsmacked. He hadn't expected to meet his godson until he was older. The name's Naruto Uzumaki, Dadabayo. Naruto said with a grin and then cross of his arms. That was his name and everyone better remember it. He's so much like them. Jiraiya's eyes widened as he stopped himself. Don't worry, he knows, Hiruzen explained. He figured it out himself. He's got Minato's talent. Jiraiya raised his eyebrow for what felt like the 50th time that day. What do you mean? He managed to copy Goken techniques by looking at them once before breaking into the Konoha library, finding the beginner scrolls and teaching himself the basics in a month. He then fought me with his genin level taijutsu and almost caught me with a kunai that he threw after using a fake leaf great whirlwind, Hiruzen explained. All of this was before I taught him to unlock his chakra. Whoa, Jiraiya mumbled. It's like Minato's back from the dead. Jiraiya knelt down so he was face level with Naruto. You know I taught your father, right? He was like a son to me. Well, actually, Jiraiya-kun, about that. Hiruzen coughed into his hand sheepishly. There's a reason why we're here. Did you and Tsunade ever engage in coitus? Hiruzen asked, choosing his words carefully so that Naruto wouldn't understand. It didn't work. I don't think so. Jiraiya thought hard about it before giggling. I think I would remember. Did you guys ever get drunk or something? Naruto asked. He had heard stories about things like that from when he was. Yeah, we got really drunk one time after the Second Shinobi World War. Jiraiya's eyes sparkled. And I did end up staying over the Senju compound that night. We did some DNA testing recently and it appears that Hiruzen paused. That Minato was you and Tsunade's son. Are you fucking kidding me, sensei? Jiraiya growled. Is this a joke? The DNA showed a match with you and Tsunade, which means that you, Hiruzen gulped, are actually Minato's father as well as Naruto's grandfather. Jiraiya turned his back to them in anger, kicking the tree he was disguised on earlier with enough force to crack the trunk. I can't believe this. My son was always there all along and I didn't know. Minato always said you were the father he never had, so in a way, you did treat him like a son, Hiruzen said, a sad look on his face. He imagined never knowing that Asuma was his son. Sure, he didn't always agree with his son on ideals, but he still loved him. Jiraiya turned to face Naruto and put his hands on his hips. So you're my grandson. Naruto mirrored the action as he met his grandfather's gaze with his own. I'm going to call you Sofu, grandfather. Jiraiya face-bombed. Please don't call me that. It made him feel so old. Fine, I didn't want to have to resort to this, but you leave me no choice. Naruto said with a foxy grin. Ero Sennin. Jiraiya face-bombed again, his eyes glaring at his grandson between the spaces in his fingers. Devil child. I'll leave you two alone, Hiruzen said as he began to walk away. I'll see you in 4 days, Naruto-kun. Ja-ne-gg. Naruto called out. The Hokage gave a nod of acknowledgement and a smile before he disappeared in a flurry of leaves. So what do you want to do, grandson? Jiraiya asked. He never really had to take care of a child before. The closest he ever got was Nawaki when he was younger and Minato back when he was a sensei, but both of them were older than Naruto was. Naruto's answer was immediate. Ramen. Of course, he's an Uzumaki. Jiraiya groaned. He wished he had brought more money because last time he brought an Uzumaki to get ramen, Kushina cough, every scrap of change he had was taken to pay for the monstrous bill Kushina had managed to create. Nevertheless, the grandfather and grandson began to walk to a Chiraka ramen, both with surprisingly large smiles on their face. For the first time in either of their lives, the two shinobi had a real family. Earth release, flying earth daggers. With a stomp of a blue sandaled foot on the training ground, several stones that were as sharp as rocks flew into the air before soaring at their target. The white-haired man who was their target managed to dodge the strike by ducking to the ground, only for his eyes to widen in surprise as the daggers suddenly turned mid-air and flew toward him once more. Homing earth projectiles, creative, Jiraiya commented as he jumped up. He waited for the daggers to fly toward his standing form once more before he leapt out of the way at the last moment, allowing the daggers to fly past him and toward the last opponent on the field. The last man flew through his hand's seals, finishing on the dog hand seal. Doton, Dorihiki. Earth release, earth wall. As soon as the old man uttered those words, a rock formation easily 10 feet wide and 15 feet tall shot up from the ground, protecting the Hokage. However, it did not protect him from the wall suddenly cracking as Naruto burst through the wall with a raised fist. Doton, Kajugen no Jutsu. Earth release, added weight rock technique. Naruto roared as he slammed his fist into Hiruzen's chest. It was like being hit by a truck due to the added weight of the attack, and the poor Sandaime Hokage flew backwards with enough force to make cracks in the tree he struck. Hiruzen attempted to survey what the hell just happened before smiling as soon as he understood. He used my momentary blindness from the earth wall to launch shurikens and kunai at Jiraiya, who was forced to react to that attack. It was actually just a distraction so that Naruto could use the Shunshin to appear in front of me. Nice job, you got sensei, Jiraiya said from his side of the field. But I'm not old like him. Naruto smirked. You're still pretty old. Jiraiya glared at his grandson. Shut up. The two shinobi met in the middle of the field and began to engage in a fierce taijutsu battle. Roundhouse kick met roundhouse kick and fist met fist, both grandson and grandfather managing to block the other's attack without fail. Naruto parried the overhead hammer fist strike to his left side before attempting to strike across Jiraiya's face with his elbow, but Jiraiya wasn't a Sannin for nothing. Almost effortlessly, Jiraiya bent backwards, ducking under the blow before going for a backhand toward the back of Naruto's head, which was blocked by a backhand of Naruto's own. Any onlooker could see that Naruto was trying so hard to keep up with his grandfather, who had both strength and experience on his side. But Jiraiya didn't have Naruto Uzumaki ingenuity on his side, patent pending. As Jiraiya went for a roundhouse kick, Naruto shot forward with a sudden burst of speed and, in a stunning change of events, slammed his fist directly into Jiraiya's groin. A rather girly scream ripped through Konoha as the great and powerful Jiraiya no Gama Sannin fell to the ground with tears running down his face as he held his crotch in pain. I win, Naruto said with a cheesy grin, walking behind Jiraiya and kicking him lightly in the butt, just to prove a point. Hiruzen walked toward them, clapping in approval. Very nicely done, Naruto-kun, using whatever you had to your advantage. Jiraiya glared at them from his position at their feet, his body in a fetal position as he tried to push back the pain. Sensei. He punched me in the dick. Good point. Hiruzen stroked his chin in thought before reaching a conclusion. I would now officially like to make the groin punch jutsu an A-rank technique. Naruto pumped his fist into the air. I just created my first A-rank technique. That doesn't help. Jiraiya groaned. He rolled onto his back and glared at the sky, imagining his son and his daughter-in-law laughing at his misery. Ironic, his son would be laughing at the blow his grandson landed on the loins that sired him. It felt weird saying that, his son. Minato had always been like a son to him, and Jiraiya always treated him like family because, like Jiraiya, Minato had never known his parents. Well, I guess he did actually. Jiraiya mumbled under his breath. Did you say something, Sofu? Naruto asked his grandfather. What? Jiraiya said, snapped out of his daydream. No. It had been 2 weeks since Naruto and Jiraiya had met, and to be honest, it was weird for the two shinobi. Jiraiya had decided to move back to Konoha as he now had a familial obligation to fulfill, but had yet to find a house for him and Naruto. On the other hand, Jiraiya saw his grandson often now and would often join his sensei and Naruto for their weekly training sessions as he had today. It was Jiraiya's suggestion that Naruto begin basic elemental training, as he had already completed the basic chakra control exercises and had as much chakra as most of the Chunin in the village. That alone was enough to awe both the Sannin and the Hokage, as Naruto's chakra reserves had managed to almost triple in size in less than a month. Since Naruto's primary affinity was Doton, Earth Release, Jiraiya thought it wouldn't hurt to teach Naruto a basic Doton technique, which was the Doton, Doryuso, Earth Release, Earth Flow Spears. And that was when things got interesting. So all you have to do is perform the Tori, bird, hand seal, and then imagine the ground moving, Jiraiya explained, demonstrating the hand seal he wanted Naruto to copy. Don't be worried if you can't on the first try. Nature transformation isn't something most shinobis attempt until far into their time as a genin. Naruto looked confused at his Sofu and Gigi, who was sitting underneath the shade of a nearby tree. So I just make the Tori hand seal and try to move the earth? Jiraiya nodded. Yes. Naruto raised an eyebrow. That's it? Don't get cocky, Mr. Genius. Nature transformation isn't a piece of cake, Jiraiya pointed out. He didn't begin learning nature transformation until he had received the Toad contract, which was a little less than halfway through his time as a genin. What always amused Hiruzen was the fact that Jiraiya's affinities when he was a genin were Katon and Doton, Orochimaru's were Futon and Sueton, and Tsunade's was Raiton, which meant that Jiraiya and Orochimaru cancelled each other out and Tsunade could cancel out both of them. So all I have to do is this, Naruto asked as he made the hand seal that somehow resembled a bird, and immediately the ground in front of him began to churn. Jiraiya coughed in surprise before clearing his throat to cover it. Very impressive. This should be good, Hiruzen mumbled as he watched from his vantage point. He had a suspicion of what would happen next, and if he was right, things should be getting interesting very soon. Now try to form the earth into spiky shapes if you can, Jiraiya explained. And call out the name of the technique. Doton, Doryuso. Earth Release, Earth Flow Spears. Naruto yelled out, his hands forming the Tori hand seal. Instantly, the churning earth shot up like a geyser of razor-sharp spikes, eager to skewer any shinobi stupid enough to get in their way. Jiraiya's jaw dropped in awe. Incredible. To perform an elemental jutsu on your first try as a child was nothing short of miraculous. Even Uchihas couldn't perform the Katon, Gokakyu, fire release, great fireball jutsu, on their first try. I had a theory and it appears to be correct, Hiruzen explained as he stood up from his seat. Naruto and Jiraiya gave him a look that said go on as the man the professor began to explain his conclusion. You, Jiraiya-kun, have an incredibly powerful Doton affinity, Hiruzen said, gesturing to Jiraiya with his hand. Naruto's grandmother Tsunade has a Doton affinity. Jiraiya raised an eyebrow at what he thought his sensei was saying. Wait, you don't think? I'm not done just yet, Hiruzen said with a single finger to stop Jiraiya. Jiraiya stopped talking but didn't look too happy about it. Naruto's great-granduncle Tobirama Senju had a Doton affinity as well as his famous Suiton affinity, Hiruzen continued. And then there were two of the greatest Doton masters in the history of the shinobi race. Hashirama Senju was known for his Mokuton, wood release, which was a combination of his Suiton affinity and his Doton affinity. His affinity to the earth in itself was powerful enough for him to create mountains on a barren landscape and create caverns as deep as he wished with a single hand, seal the Hokage said, reminiscing on the first time he ever saw his other sensei use a Doton technique. It was the reason Konoha didn't have a training ground 45. Then there was Naruto's other grandfather, Mu of the Jinton, dust release. That man was terrifying with his prowess of the earth. In a battle between him and my sensei, Tobirama Senju, I saw him once raise two mountains from the ground instantly before trying to smash them together in an attempt to squash Tobirama Sensei, Hiruzen explained. He could make himself light enough to fly and heavy enough to deliver punches stronger than Tsunade. So what are you saying? Jiraiya asked, even though he knew what his sensei was going to say. I think that Naruto has somehow inherited the strongest Doton affinity the elemental nations has ever seen from the members of his family, Hiruzen said with a smile. The only thing I can even think to compare it to Tobirama Sensei's Suiton affinity or Madara's Katon affinity. So what do you think I could do with it? Naruto asked. Doton jutsu without hand seals, moving mountains, earthquakes. Hiruzen shook his head in disbelief. The world is literally at your fingertips. All I'm hearing is that I'm awesome, Naruto smirked. That doesn't mean you don't have to train, Jiraiya frowned. A genius of hard work can beat a genius of genetics any day. Naruto grinned. Well then I'm going to be the hardest working genius of genetics you ever met, Sofu. As Jiraiya reminisced over the past few weeks, he couldn't help but notice things were changing and hopefully for the better. All his life he felt like a failure. He failed to become Rookie of the Year. He failed to become his sensei's favorite. He failed to stop Orochimaru from leaving. He failed to stop Nagato and Yahiko from dying. He failed to save his only son from a fate worse than death. He failed to find out about his grandson until less than a month ago, forcing the boy to live by himself for 6 years. But now he could change that. Hey Gaki, come with me, Jiraiya said as he stood up and stretched, groaning slightly. Naruto walked up next to his grandfather, which was slightly comical considering their difference in height, build, hair color, eye color and clothing, but nevertheless, they had already begun to develop the familial bond that was customary between close relatives. Jiraiya dropped to one knee so he was eye level with Naruto, just as he had done when they had first met. I'm taking you to get you some real shinobi gear. Really? Naruto asked with glee before he realized something. But I like the orange. Trust me Gaki, you're going to like this more. You're coming too, sensei, I think you're going to like this as well. Very well, Hiruzen said with a smile. I'm not needed at the office for another hour or so, and the longer I'm away from that damn paperwork, the happier I am. For the entire walk across Konoha, the three shinobi were making jokes about each other and things they could all relate to. Naruto's favorite targets were the old age of his Sofu and Jiji, while Jiraiya kept going for the shortness of both his grandson and sensei. On the other hand, all three agreed Hiruzen won when he mentioned the fact that he may be short and old, but he was the badass Hokage that had fought in all three shinobi world wars and had a crystal ball that let him spy on girls in the hot springs without having to henge as a tree branch and hang there. All three were having so much fun that they almost missed where they were going, the Dragon's Claw. The Dragon's Claw was a famous shinobi supply store known throughout all the villages for its excellent weapons, exclusive clientele and incredible resources. It was a small shop that was not too fancy, that looked old compared to the buildings around it, which is due to the fact that the Dragon's Claw had been stationed in Konoha since the First Shinobi World War. It was there that the Senju brothers and Madara Uchiha had received their famous armor. Jiraiya pushed open the solid wood door and entered the shop with Naruto and Hiruzen behind him. As soon as he entered, Naruto's jaw dropped in awe. The wooden walls of the shop were covered almost entirely in weapons. Katanas, naginatas, shields, bows, kunai and shuriken in every shape and size existed somewhere on that wall, not to mention what appeared to be a basement if Naruto sensed correctly. The Sannin looked around before noticing the man he was looking for in the very back of the shop. The owner was incredibly old, older looking than even Hiruzen, and was quite short due to the hunch he now supported. His hair was white like Jiraiya's, but due to age and his brown eyes were hidden behind large glasses that took up most of his wrinkled face. He was wearing a simple pair of black pants and a green shirt with a heavy weaponsmith's apron on top of that. In his right hand was a wooden cane that he was using to support himself on. "Ohio Shojiji." "Old man Sho," Jiraiya called out. The man, now known of as Sho, looked up at them, his eyes squinting as he made out who they were. "Ah, Jiraiya-kun, Hiruzen-san, long time no see." "It's been too long, Sho-san," Hiruzen said with a small bow to the man who mirrored the action. Hiruzen and Sho had known each other for a long time, as Hiruzen often went to the Dragon's Claw when Sho's father ran it to get weapons and armor back in the olden days. It was then that Sho noticed the child in the room. "Who is this?" "Hey. My name is Naruto Uzumaki," Naruto introduced as he stuck out his hand to the man. Sho smiled as he took it and shook Naruto's hand firmly. Sho turned to look at Jiraiya. "Is he the one you ordered it for?" Jiraiya nodded. "Yes, they're for him. Let me go get them from the back," Sho said as he turned around and walked into the basement of the store, the door slamming shut behind him. "What is going on?" Hiruzen asked. "Shojiji may seem old and weak, but he's without a doubt the best weapon supplier and one of the best weaponsmiths in elemental nations," Jiraiya commented, refusing to look Naruto or Hiruzen in the eye. "And what does that have to do with me?" Naruto asked. Jiraiya smiled and was about to respond when the door to the basement opened and Sho walked up holding a few packages, which he then handed to the Toad Sannin. "Here you go, Jiraiya-kun." "Thank you," Jiraiya said as he turned to face Naruto with packages in hand. "From the first time I saw you, Gaki, I knew one thing." Jiraiya paused to add suspense. Naruto grabbed onto the collar of Jiraiya's shirt and began to shake his grandfather as the suspense was killing him. "You knew what?" Jiraiya sighed and looked Naruto directly in the eyes as he uttered the next words with a completely straight face. "I knew that those orange jumpsuits had to go." Naruto and Hiruzen almost face-bombed. "Seriously?" Jiraiya gave a chuckle at his grandson's face before handing Naruto the packages. "Here you go." Naruto carefully unwrapped the gifts before gasping in surprise. Inside the parcels were different articles of clothing, from black umbu pants that would fit him to long-sleeve black shirts and a pair of black shinobi sandals. But it was the object in the last package that excited Naruto. It was a light gray robe that was designed to go over the rest of the outfit and was tied around the waist by a black obi. It was the red flames that were on the very bottom of the robe that caught Naruto's attention as he slid on the robe. It was incredibly soft, but a strong tug on the fabric showed that it was most likely made of some sort of fabric that was much stronger than it looks. "They're similar to the ones I used to wear when I was a genin," Jiraiya explained. "It's also the same design that inspired your dad's famous Haori. I love it," Naruto said as he wrapped his grandfather in a big hug. "Thank you. As soon as I'll meet you guys in a second. Let's go, I'll buy us all ice cream," Hiruzen said as he led Naruto out the door. He couldn't help but notice how similar to a young Jiraiya Naruto looked in his new uniform. He was struck with a memory when he was taking Jiraiya out to get ice cream after one of their genin meetings, and Jiraiya was excitedly telling him about this little toad he had met named Gamabunta. As they were about to exit, Naruto turned around and waved at the old man talking to Jiraiya. "Sayonara, Shojiji." Sho looked up, surprised, before waving at Naruto. "Goodbye, Naruto-kun." Naruto grinned his big cheesy smile as he ran out the door after Hiruzen to tell his Gigi he wanted orange cream. "Thanks a lot, Shojiji," Jiraiya said as he walked out of the store. "Let me know when the other stuff I ordered comes in." "Of course, although that might not be for a while," Sho explained. "Orders from that side of the continent tend to take a while, and I wouldn't want our young spies to get caught." Jiraiya nodded. "Of course." And with that, He walked out of the store to find his sensei and grandson without another word. A month had passed since Jiraiya had bought Naruto new training gear and all had been well. While they had not announced the relation between them, Jiraiya and Naruto often walked through Konoha together, which limited the glares and looks of disgust Naruto often received. Naruto had even become friends with Sho and was often at the Dragon's Claw helping around when he wasn't with his family. Sho even said he would teach Naruto to forge when he was older in the famous style of his family. On the shinobi side of things, Naruto had finally been able to land a solid hit on Jiraiya in a taijutsu battle, which was impressive considering in most of their spars Naruto would have to use some sort of cunning trickery to attack his Sofu or Jiji. He had also gotten quite fast with his hand seals after some training from Hiruzen, who was known to be able to flash through over 200 hand seals in a minute. Naruto's chakra control was getting much better as well, with tree climbing being effortless, and after training at the hot springs with Jiraiya, water walking was much easier as well. But the biggest change of all was the level of comfort between Naruto and Jiraiya. Instead of that awkward, forced contact that they had before, the two were finally truly bonding. Yo Sofu! Naruto yelled as he ran to the front gate of Konoha. It was the day after Naruto's weekly training sessions with the Hokage, and at the end, Jiraiya had stopped by and told him to meet at the edge of the village with an overnight bag ready. Hey Gaki, Jiraiya responded as he placed a scroll into his pocket. Naruto slung the bag over his shoulder, his black and red bag matching slightly with his gray and red robe. Where are we going? Jiraiya began to walk toward the gate. I'm taking you on a trip. I assumed that from the fact that you asked me to pack an overnight bag and meet you at the gate to Konoha. Naruto deadpanned. Jiraiya glared at him as he handed the travel forms to the young men at the gate. Where did you get your smartassery from? Smartassery is not a word, Naruto pointed out. Both of the gate guards were around 15 and appeared to be genin. The genin that took the papers from Jiraiya had brown hair that went over his eye and was wearing his headband like a bandana. The other shinobi had long black hair, a bandage across his nose and dark eyes that twinkled with amusement at Naruto's comment. Now that Naruto thought about it, he was pretty sure one of them was Izumo and the other was named Kotetsu. I can't deal with this, Jiraiya groaned. The one Naruto thought was Izumo gave Jiraiya a sympathetic smile as he handed him back the travel papers. He knew what it was like to be with a sarcastic idiot for 10 hours a day. Let's go, Jiraiya said. It was then Naruto and Jiraiya disappeared from view, running at around Chunin level speed, which earned 2 dropped jaws from Izumo and Kotetsu. Tree jumping is an important skill for a shinobi to learn, as it was often the fastest way to travel throughout most of the woody lands of the Land of Fire and the surrounding areas. Not only that, but it was also an almost exclusively shinobi style of transportation, as chakra must be pushed out of a shinobi's feet so that they can get enough propulsion to reach the next branch. Where are we going? Naruto asked once they were a significant distance from Konoha. We are going to find your grandmother, Tsunade no Namakuji, Tsunade the Slug Princess, Jiraiya said, looking straight ahead. Naruto turned to him in shock, almost slamming into a tree branch as he did so. What? You heard right, Jiraiya said as he stopped running and leaned against a tree wall. Naruto paused at one of the trees next to Jiraiya. I thought no one knew where she was. The day after I met you, I ordered my entire spy network to search for her, Jiraiya explained. 2 days ago, one of my informants found her and her apprentice Shizune in a small town in the Land of Fire, a week's travel from Konoha. I never really talk about this, Jiraiya said with a sad look on his face. But I'm an orphan. I never knew my parents, which is why I always wanted to be the father to Minato I never had. You don't know your parents, but you know your grandparents, Jiraiya said as he dropped to one knee to be at eye level with Naruto, a habit he had developed whenever he and Naruto were having a heart-to-heart moment. And if there is even the slightest possibility that I can give you a life knowing a family, I will do everything in my power. Naruto wiped a tear from his eyes as he wrapped his grandfather in a hug. Thank you, Sofu. Let us go, Jiraiya said as he stood up. There's a town coming in about another 7 miles, and I would like to teach you something that your father and mother cherished. It was with that the two shinobi disappeared in a burst of speed, a smile on Naruto's face. Konohagakure no Sato was known for its beautiful green leaves that sparkled in the ever-present sunshine of the village and the loving attitude the village encouraged, something that had named the Will of Fire. The village was also known for its ability to create powerful shinobi that were known throughout all the hidden villages. Hashirama Senju, Tobarama Senju, Madara Uchiha, Hiruzen Sarutobi, Jiraiya no Gama Sennin, Tsunade no Namakuji, Orochimaru no Shirohige, Minato Namikaze, Kushina Uzumaki, Kakashi Hatake, Mato Gai, Asuma Sarutobi. Over the last few years, another name had been added to that legendary roster. Itachi Uchiha. A prodigy even among some of Konoha's greatest. He had entered the academy at 6, 2 years before normal admission before graduating at 7. He had mastered the Sharingan by 8 and passed the Chunin exams by 10. By 11, he had skipped Jonin and entered the ANBU Black Ops where he immediately became one of their best operatives. Considering most genin graduated the academy at 14, this was incredibly impressive. A weasel-masked ANBU knelt before the Hokage. The mask had been a moment of whimsy for the usually stoic Uchiha as his name Itachi meant weasel. The two had agreed not to meet in the Hokage's office in the academy as even at this time of night, who knew when someone would glance through the window and notice Itachi talking to the Hokage. Thus, they had decided to meet in one of the many hidden ANBU facilities. The gray walls were perfect for the grim news the Hokage was about to hear. Itachi-kun, you may speak freely, the Hokage said, snapping the 11-year-old from his thoughts. I would like to hear your report. My father and several other members of the clan have become increasingly more radical recently in their beliefs that they should have greater amounts of power due to one of the founders being an Uchiha, Itachi said as he removed his mask, revealing a pair of crimson Sharingan. They have not taken any violent ideologies yet, but they claim that they would like to request a second council seat for the Konoha police force. This is an issue as the police force is entirely Uchiha-run, which would grant my clan 2 seats on the council. The Shinobi Council was an interesting thing in itself. While technically it held no power as the Hokage was an almost dictator in the choices for the village, the council was full of some of the strongest and most influential clan heads in Konoha as well as the Hokage's personal advisors. It allowed the Hokage to hear different takes and points of view on a topic that may not be incredibly clean-cut. Each seat often gave their opinion on a matter, and at the end of the meeting, there was a vote. A majority of the time, the result of the vote went through unless vetoed by the Hokage. If the Uchiha had a second seat, the tide of power could shift and the Uchiha could influence many decisions. This is very bad, the Hokage mumbled. It was a difficult situation. He could not allow the Uchihas to gain more power than the rest of the clans, however, if he were to flat out deny them, their anger would fester even more until they took violent action. A civil war was the last thing Konoha needed. The Hokage sighed. How long do you think it could take for the Uchihas to become out of control? Itachi thought for a second, his black hair falling in front of his eyes. There are few followers behind these feelings, so I would say at least a year, possibly more. The Hokage nodded. That was enough time to come up with a plan. Good work, Itachi-kun, continue monitoring the situation. Itachi bowed his head to the Hokage before preparing to shun away when the Hokage raised his hand to stop him. One last thing. Itachi looked up at him in surprise. Yes, Hokage-sama. There is someone I want you to meet, the Hokage said. His name is Naruto Uzumaki. Itachi raised an eyebrow. Minato-sama's son? The Hokage almost gasped in surprise. How did you? Blonde hair, blue eyes, whisker birthmarks, that was likely the effect of the Kyuubi's chakra, and Kushina-sensei, was born the same night the Kyuubi was sealed, and lastly, was born around the same time Kushina-sensei was due. Itachi listed off with a straight face. So I assume he is Minato-sama and Kushina-sensei's child as well as the Kyuubi's Jinchuriki. The Hokage was impressed, but his face was grim. That doesn't leave this room, understood? Of course, Hokage-sama, Itachi said as he nodded. He knew the reasons why that sort of secret needed to remain a secret, at least until Naruto learned to defend himself or he gained the people to protect him. It was discovered recently that he is a prodigy. Jiraiya even placed him in the same league as you, Minato, and my other former student Hiruzen explained. He even reminds me a bit of myself. Now Itachi was interested. Hiruzen Sarutobi was labeled as one of the greatest shinobis in recorded history and the greatest of his generation, even among people like Inoki, the Sandaime Tsuchikage, and the Sandaime Reikage. Orochimaru, while crazy, was a prodigy even among the rest of the Sannin and a legendary scientist. Minato Namikaze was a genius that managed to master the Hiraishin, a long-forgotten technique of the Nidaime Hokage, by his second year as a genin and became the fastest man in history with his use of it. For there to be another genius of this caliber in the coming ranks of Konoha and in the same generation as Itachi's own brother, he was interested. The Hokage once again snapped Itachi from his thoughts with his next words. I would like for you to talk to him. Talk to him? Itachi repeated, unsure if he heard correctly. I know socializing isn't your strong suit, but it is essential for him to meet someone who can be a peer to him, Hiruzen explained. Itachi still looked unsure until he heard the Hokage's next words. He has Minato's intelligence and Kushina's personality. Itachi smirked. Databane? Databeo, the Hokage corrected with a smile. Naruto was very similar to Itachi's former teacher in some way. Itachi groaned, but he was smiling. That's just great. With that, Itachi disappeared in a flurry of leaves. Kushina had not been his official sensei, however. When Itachi had first joined the academy, she was one of the first to notice his talent. From her, he learned Kenjutsu and Suiton, a rare affinity he had since he was in the Uchiha clan. He was eager to meet her legacy. Hiruzen sighed as he stared at the empty room he was in. It's important for you to find a peer as well, Itachi-kun. What is this? Naruto sat down next to Jiraiya onto one of the stones that surrounded them. The town they had stopped at did not have a training ground like Konoha, nor did it have the same ubiquitous surrounding trees that Naruto would often use as targets for his weapons. What the town did have, however, was a large lake that was far enough distance away from the populated part of town that chakra techniques could be used. Jiraiya sat on one of the stones that was one of the edge of the blue water of the lake, an open scroll on the stone and a calligraphy pen in his hand. Jiraiya turned his scroll covered in black symbols toward Naruto. This is Fuinjutsu. With a few simple symbols, bijou can be sealed, people can be teleported at unimaginable speeds, elements can be captured, and incredibly strong companions can be summoned, Jiraiya said. The symbols started to dance before Naruto's eyes, a hidden instinct taking over as he looked at what could only be called artwork. Your clan, the Uzumaki clan, was known for their unmatched prowess in Fuinjutsu, Jiraiya said. Your great-grandmother Mito Uzumaki was a level 10 of 10 seal master and has been the only person in history to seal a bijou into themselves. At that, Naruto could have sworn he heard a laugh from inside of his head, but that's impossible. There was no one in his head but him. Right? Your mother is said to be one of the only Fuinjutsu masters that was at the same level of your great-grandmother. She had a deadly style of ninkinjutsu that involved combining different elements with her sword swings by sealing the chakra onto the blade directly, Jiraiya explained, reminiscing about one of the most terrifying women he had ever met and his daughter-in-law. She was also infamous for her chains, which was a combination of her dense chakra and an ancient Uzumaki sealing technique. The adamantine sealing chains were almost unstoppable in battle and unique to your mother. Then there was your father. He had become a level 6 Fuinjutsu expert by the time he graduated the academy and had become a level 8 Fuinjutsu master within 6 months after that. Within a year after that, he had found the notes of the Nidaime and had managed to recreate the Hiraishin no Jutsu with his own Shiki. Jiraiya sighed at the memory of first meeting Minato. So these are the kids. Jiraiya and Hiruzen were sitting in the Hokage's office, staring into the small crystal ball on the desk as the Hokage pushed chakra into it. In the ball was the scene of a couple dozen kids sitting in a classroom. While normally, this would be incredibly creepy and pervy for a bunch of old men to be spying on a bunch of school children, but these incredibly pervy men were not creepy. Not that creepy. Hiruzen leaned back into his chair. Yes. How good are they? Jiraiya asked. Not sure about all of them, but there is him, Hiruzen explained before pointing at a small blonde boy in a white jumpsuit with spiky blonde hair. Jiraiya smirked. He looks pretty girly. That's what she apparently said. Hiruzen smiled. Before he killed a Kumo Jonin and rescued her. Jiraiya raised an eyebrow. Last year an Uzumaki girl named Kushina Uzumaki had become the new Kyubi Jinchuriki after the death of Uzumaki Mito. The girl's grandaunt and the Shodame's wife passed away. A week ago, she was kidnapped by Kumogakure, who wanted to make use of her special chakra in order to gain control of the Nine Tails. Apparently the Kumogakure ninja were trying to get her to Kumo. She secretly plucked and left behind strands of her red hair to mark her trail in the hopes that someone would find her. So he's the mystery genin that saved the Uzumaki heiress, Jiraiya commented. How's his family like? It was a normal question to ask when trying to find information on a shinobi. The family of a shinobi often told their potential or any special abilities they might have. He's an orphan, Hiruzen explained. Jiraiya furrowed his brow in thought. Looks like someone I know. Jiraiya stroked his chin in thought before sighing. I'll take him and 2 others. I would hope you would say that because we gave team assignments yesterday, Hiruzen said with a smirk. You should meet your team at training ground 13 in 5 minutes. Jiraiya's jaw almost dropped in shock. What? Hiruzen's eyes were full of amusement as he smiled at his student. Good luck. I hate you, Sensei, Jiraiya said as he left out the room quickly. As he did this, he missed the blonde-haired boy and the crystal ball disappear in a leafless shunshin. Something thought to be impossible. At that moment, he didn't know he would be training one of the greatest prodigies in the history of the elemental nations. So what do I have to do? Follow my lead. Hold the brush gently, too tight of a grip and you could possibly crack the brush or worse, 'cause your hands to shake. And shaky hands are bad? Fuinjutsu is known as one of the most difficult shinobi arts for several reasons. One of which is the incredible amount of intelligence and imagination required for it. The second is the firm yet delicate control required to create perfect kanji and symbols. One misstroke and everything explodes. It was only then that Naruto's hands started to shake. So follow my lead exactly, Jiraiya instructed as he began to draw on the page. Up, down, left, down, twist and flick. Naruto furrowed his brow in concentration as he copied his grandfather exactly. Okay, now what? Jiraiya inspected Naruto's seal. It was a bit sloppy and small, but each stroke was broad and pronounced enough to work. Place a kunai onto the seal and push a little bit of chakra into the kanji, Jiraiya said. Naruto nodded and placed his hand onto the kanji along with a kunai from his pouch. His hand briefly glowed a bright blue before the seal exploded in a burst of smoke. When it dissipated, all that was left was the paper, no kunai. Naruto's jaw almost dropped. Whoa. Incredible, isn't it, Jiraiya said with a smile. If you have the drive and motivation, you have the potential to be a great seal master. Thanks, Naruto said with a smile. He was about to look down at his scroll when he froze, confusion running through his face. Jiraiya raised an eyebrow. What hap? 36, no chakra levels higher than Chunin except one Jonin level. Coming from the woods surrounding us, Naruto said with urgency. A dozen in front, a dozen in the back and half a dozen from both sides. Jiraiya nodded in understanding. Chakra gangs. A chakra gang was when a missing nin taught thugs and thieves how to access their chakra. This didn't make them shinobi, but this made their physical prowess beyond normal civilian levels. How fast? Jiraiya asked. We have 30 seconds, Naruto said as he began to search through his bag. Very well, Jiraiya nodded. It was then Naruto found what he was looking for. It was a simple wood rod about a foot long, but with a simple burst of chakra, it expanded into a bough that was easily as tall as Naruto. This was Sorajiri, Sky Cutter, or just Sora for short, and it was a recurve bough made of chakra wood. It didn't seem like much, but with a draw weight over 100 pounds combined with chakra-enhanced arrows, it was powerful enough to kill within 200 yards. Jiraiya raised an eyebrow. How good are you with that thing? It was a fair question. Naruto had only received it less than 2 months ago and technically didn't have a teacher in Kyujitsu. Naruto shrugged as he lifted his bow up. Good enough. In a single fluid motion, he grabbed an arrow from a quiver he had strapped to his back and placed it onto the string. By pushing his shoulder blades together and enhancing his strength with chakra, he was able to pull the bow back to its full draw weight. He took a deep breath before letting the arrow fly, launching it into the trees before there was a thud. Jiraiya raised an eyebrow at the practiced skill. What? I sensed a bandit that was faster than the others and shot him in the helmet. Naruto shrugged. He should be okay. Jiraiya nodded. Here they come. And the sand nin was right. A few seconds later, almost 36 people jumped out from the trees and straight at Naruto and Jiraiya. Most were dressed in some odd mixture of black and blue and carried some assortment of weapons. Chipped katanas and bows were pointed at Naruto and Jiraiya by men with chipped teeth who did not understand the severity of their fuck-up. Naruto slammed his foot onto the ground and willed the earth around to rise up. Without another word, earth walls rose from the ground and blocked the incoming attack from the bandits. Jiraiya clapped his hands together to form one of his signature techniques. Doton, Yomi Numa. Earth release, swamp of the underworld. Instantly the ground that the bandits had just been forced to land on turned to mud and swamp, locking them into place. Naruto clapped his hands together. Earth release, Hydra. Hydro was a technique Naruto had created recently. It was relatively simple with only a ranking of C but still powerful. 9 simple rods as thick as a tree trunk burst from the ground before becoming flexible like a neck of a snake. The ends of the tendrils were blunt but struck with enough force to break bones. Naruto whipped his hands around his body in a circular motion, the 9 tendrils mirroring the movement and striking everyone around Naruto with enough power to send them flying out of the swamp and back into the trees. This brought the count down from 35 to 28. Jiraiya quickly flipped through 6 hand seals before taking a deep breath. Katon, Enden. Fire release, flame bullet. The ball of white-hot flames flew from the toad Sennin's mouth and instantly roasted 10 bandits that were unfortunate enough to be immobilized by the swamp. 28 turned into 17. Naruto began to replicate his taijutsu katas, kicking and punching so that the Hydra would copy him. A head struck one man in the chest, the other in the face. It was a dance that dropped the number from 17 to 8 but not before forcing Naruto to drop the Hydra from due to chakra restrictions. Jiraiya leaned his head forward and coated his hair in chakra. Hari Jigaku. Needle Hell. Chakra-coated hairs as stiff as needles and strong enough to pierce stone shot from Jiraiya's head like a machine gun, the chakra enveloping his scalp regenerating the hairs as fast as they were shot. The hairs ripped through the remaining gang members, reducing the numbers from 8 to 0. Naruto sighed as he watched his grandfather take care of the last of the attackers. Suddenly he paused, his sensor ability picking up on something. His eyes widened in horror as he turned around. A last gang member with a dented helmet flew at Naruto with at least Chunin speed and a katana in hand. He must have been the leader as well as the person that was moving faster than the rest of the gang that Naruto had knocked out in the beginning. Naruto's reserves were not full, not to mention the fact that he couldn't use any technique before he was impaled by the sword. So he did the only thing he could do and raised the bow that he had strapped to his back. He barely even could register what he was doing as he placed an arrow onto the string with the same fluid motion as before and pulled the string back. His eyes shut themselves as the arrow flew at an incredible speed. There was a thud as the attack fell to the ground, his dead eyes wide in shock as the arrow pierced through his heart. Naruto's eyes opened just in time to see the leader fall to earth a mere foot away from him. The young boy fell to his knees, his world shattering around him as he placed his face into his hands began to cry. What have I done? Jiraiya held a blanket-wrapped Naruto in his arms as he tree-hopped at a speed that could only be described as Kage level. Every time his feet struck a branch, it cracked from the amount of force his wooden geta placed on the tree. Jiraiya had not ran that fast since he had discovered Orochimaru had betrayed the village. In the middle of the night, Naruto had begun shaking with cold sweat and had awoken screaming. His eyes were wide and full of fear, as if his nightmares were haunting him in the real world as well. Jiraiya understood what Naruto was going through. The first kill was always incredibly difficult. Most shinobi had their first kill during their genin or chunin career. Naruto had just killed someone at the age of 6.5. When most genin had their first kill, either their teacher or the Hokage would usually explain to them the reason why killing was essential in the life of a shinobi. If that didn't work, then the parent of the shinobi was brought in, which would hopefully calm them down. However, the Hokage wasn't here and Jiraiya's attempts to calm Naruto down wasn't work. Naruto didn't even have parents to comfort him. That left only one person left to calm Naruto down. Damn it, Jiraiya groaned. Where the hell are you? Iwagakure no Sato was known for being an odd village. The high mountains surrounded the village like a wall, to a prison. At least that was what some of the villagers thought. Nevertheless, Iwa was known for its incredible defensive walls but more so its powerful shinobi that all held the determination of stone. The most powerful of these shinobis were the Tsuchikage. The Shodaime Tsuchikage, first Earth Shadow, was Ishikawa Kamizuru. He was the shinobi who used his overwhelming power over bugs to destroy hundreds of shinobi single-handedly and gather thousands of others under his banner. The Nidaime Tsuchikage, second Earth Shadow, was Mu. An odd man who was known for his incredible intelligence and elemental prowess that was beyond all others beside the Senju brothers and Madara Uchiha. Everything returned to the earth due to the sheer power of his Jintan, dust release. The Sandaime Tsuchikage, third Earth Shadow, and current leader of Iwa was Inoki. Student of Mu and successor of Ishikawa's Ishi no Ishi, Will of Stone. The oldest living Kage at 72, as well as one of the only 2 Kages to survive all 3 shinobi world wars. Inoki sat at his table with his hands folded in front of him and a pensive look on his face. There was a reason behind this look from the oldest Kage. Today was 2 anniversaries, the death of his master Mu, and the death of 1,000 Iwagakure soldiers to the Kiroi Senko, Yellow Flash, during the 3rd Shinobi World War. Damn Konoha bastard. Inoki glanced down at the sake bottle on the table but didn't touch it. It was then he glanced out the window at the sun setting over the mountains of his village. Everything was peaceful and quiet. Inoki narrowed his eyes. Something was off. With a simple snap of his fingers, Anbu appeared before him with heads bowed and hands on their swords, ready to move on their leader's orders. Run a search around the village, Inoki ordered as he made eye contact with the masked man in front of him. Don't let any of the villagers, and if you find anyone who isn't supposed to be here, bring them to me. The bear-masked Anbu nodded his head. Hai Tsuchikage-sama. Inoki gave a slight nod. Dismissed. With that, the 4 Anbu in the room disappeared in a Iwa Shunshin, Rock Shunshin, but the thieves were already gone, and headed toward Hai no Kuni. Jiraiya let out a sigh of relief as he entered the town, the bright lights calming him down. He had been running for the last few hours and had managed to cross the entire distance that would have taken him and Naruto a week running at genin speeds in that time. Naruto had fallen asleep on his grandfather's back but was still shivering with cold sweat. Don't worry, Gaki, this will fix everything, Jiraiya mumbled under his breath. A year ago, he never would have thought he would care this much for a kid. Hell, he never thought he would have any sort of family. But within a few months everything had changed. Jiraiya would march into hell itself and bitch-slap the Shinigami to save his grandchild. The Sannin entered the large inn that was near the entrance to the town and quickly looked around the large bar. It was lit by the light of a few old lamps and a small fire that crackled in the fireplace. At the very end of the table was the woman he was looking for. The younger woman was of about average height and had short black hair and eyes. She was wearing a blue kimono that covered her hands, but it was the pig in her hands that raised the most eyebrows. She looked to be about 17 or 18. The other woman looked to be only a few years older than the other woman and had long blonde hair tied into 2 ponytails. She had brown eyes the color of wood and was wearing a green haori over black pants and a gray kimono-style blouse. The most prominent feature about her was her, huge breasts that easily dwarfed all the other women in the room, something that was obviously noticed by all the men. Jiraiya groaned. He had been trying to catch her when she wasn't drunk. Nevertheless, he walked up the woman with Naruto in tow. The younger woman noticed them first and her eyes lit up, the pig in her arms oinking happily. Jiraiya-sama, the woman said with cheer. The other woman looked up from her sake bottle at the cry at the white-haired man before her and the little kid behind him with a blanket over his shoulders. Who's the Gaki? The blonde woman asked as she took another sip of her alcoholic beverage. Naruto looked up from his daydream and glared at the lady. Hey! Only Aji-san can call me that. Tsunade glared right back. I can call you whatever the hell I want, Gaki. Jiraiya gave a small smile. Naruto hadn't said a single word the entire trip here and now he was talking up a storm. Jiraiya was snapped from his thoughts from Naruto pouting and tugging on Jiraiya's haori. Aji-san, why are we talking to this mean old lady? Tsunade glared at Jiraiya, trying to ignore the old lady comment. What's with the kid, Jiraiya? I need your help, Jiraiya pleaded with his former teammate. He's Minato's son. Tsunade raised her eyebrow. This was the son of Minato and Kushina, the Kyubi Jinchuriki. It had taken a while for her to forgive herself as Kushina had asked Tsunade to be her midwife, but Tsunade and Shizun had been in Kaminari no Kuni and couldn't get to Konoha in time. Perhaps if the Slug Princess herself had been there, Minato and Kushina wouldn't have had to die. So you're Naruto, Tsunade said with a straight face, keeping her thoughts to herself. How old are you now? Naruto looked up at the blonde lady. I'm 6. Tsunade's eyes widened in shock. Had it really been 6 years since then? Shizun saw her mentor was caught off guard, so she bent down so she was eye height with Naruto and began to speak. Wow, you're big for 6 years old. Thank you, pretty lady, Naruto said with a rub of his eye. I'm Shizun, so you can call me Shizun-nichan, Shizun said with a smile. She would have to remember that Naruto called her pretty before he called Tsunade pretty. While Naruto and Shizen conversed and the medic Nin discovered that the boy was much smarter than she originally thought, Tsunade and Jiraiya talked by the bar. Why did you bring Minato's kid to me? Sensei gave this to me for you to read, Jiraiya said as he summoned a file in a puff of smoke. It's easier than if I tried to explain it. Tsunade raised an eyebrow as she grabbed the file, noticing the official ANBU medical seal on the side. With a simple chakra blade, her finger cut open the seal that held it shut and opened the file. Her eyes widened to astronomical proportions as she began to read the contents. Her head began to shake in disbelief, even going as far as to double-check the machine's work by comparing the DNA mappings manually. Once she realized it was accurate, she leaned back against the wooden bar and placed a hand to her forehead. This is ridiculous. Apparently Shizun and Naruto's conversation had finished as Naruto ran up to Jiraiya and tugged on his shirt just as before. So who is this Lady Aji-san? This is Tsunade Senju, Jiraiya said, gesturing at the princess of Konoha as he said this. One of the last Senju. There was silence, both from Naruto and the entire bar, however, for different reasons. The bar hadn't realized that the legendary sucker was the famous Tsunade Senju. Naruto on the other hand recognized the name from Gigi reading him his medical file. Tsunade-sama. Shizen interrupted with a cough. People are staring. Tsunade looked around and indeed they were. She nodded and gestured toward the door. Let's go somewhere else. Shizen-nichan, why do you have a pig? Naruto asked as he followed the teenage girl out the door and toward a different location. His comment earned him a giggle and an oink. Jiraiya and Tsunade stopped right outside of the bar, letting Shizen and Naruto get out of earshot. What's up with the kid? Tsunade asked her longtime friend. She had noticed something off about him despite his attempt to act childish and innocent. Jiraiya leaned against the wooden wall of the inn. First kill. He's young, Tsunade commented. That's some Warring Clans shit. I need you to fix him, Jiraiya said. That's not a simple medical procedure, Tsunade said with a roll of her eyes. I can't just flip through hand seals and mystical palm that away. He needs a female figure in his life to care for him, Jiraiya explained with a sigh. Tsunade scoffed at what the white-haired man was suggesting. I'm not a mother. And I'm not a father, Jiraiya said passionately. But we have to be the parents to him that we never were to Minato. Tsunade was about to respond when Jiraiya stopped her with a raised finger. Jiraiya sighed and looked down at his clenched fists. You loved Dan and I understand how that hurts. I was close to Nawaki as well. I feel so much guilt that we survive and live through every day with our sins, but an innocent child dies on one of his first missions. He let out a growl of anger. But you can't blame that on yourself. Minato was our opportunity to fix our friendship and maybe our team in general, but we let him slip through our fingers, Jiraiya said, staring at Tsunade's emotional brown eyes. He grew up to be a great man with our guidance. We have a second chance, Tsunade Senju, to have a family, Jiraiya said with a small tear welling in his eye. To care for a boy in need and fix our kunai-scarred hearts with love. It was with that tear falling down his face onto the ground that he knelt down onto one knee. Tsunade gasped. What are you doing? Jiraiya smiled at her expression. I haven't seen your face in so many years, Tsunade-chan, but with or without henge, your smile is the most beautiful in the world. Tsunade couldn't stop her eyes from beginning to water. Jiraiya-kun. Through every little fight and skirmish, we have stood together as friends and have managed to brave wars together, Jiraiya admitted. But even as a kid, I thought I could love you and spend my life with you. I will die for you, Tsunade-chan, the Sannin said with an emotional smile. And only death could do us part if you say yes. Jiraiya reached into his pocket and pulled out a scroll, the type meant to be put into the pockets of a flak jacket, and pumped chakra as he unwrapped it. With a puff of smoke, a small box appeared on top. I have loved you for over 45 years and I will always love you, Jiraiya said as he opened the box towards Tsunade, revealing a beautiful ring crafted on Mount Myobokuzan with an incredible diamond set in the center. He took a deep breath as he uttered the most important sentence of his life. So will you, Tsunade Senju, my first friend and the love of my life, marry me? For one of the only times in her life, Tsunade was speechless with tears running down her face. Shizen-nichan, Naruto asked. I have a question. They had walked into the forest that covered most of Hai no Kuni and Naruto couldn't help but feel at home. Perhaps it was because of his great-grandfather creating most of the trees in the country, but he felt like he was at peace. With his sensing ability, he could feel the coursing of chakra through the earth and the trees. This was partially the reason behind his affinity to earth, as he could feel the heartbeat of the earth and could guide it in the way he wished, unlike normal shinobi. Most shinobi forced the elements to their will, controlling the elements by force. An animal kept on a leash will never fight for someone the same way an animal that is treated as a friend might. Shizune looked over the boy walking beside her. Yes, Naruto-kun? Naruto blinked as he looked at her, extending his senses onto the teenager. You have high Chunin level reserves, but they don't feel like normal shinobi reserves. You're a sensor, Shizune said with a little bit of surprise. That's very impressive, as you can even sense the feel of a person's chakra. I was born with a rather high affinity to medical ninjutsu, which is the reason why my chakra feels different than most other chakras, as it was meant to heal, Shizune explained. That doesn't mean I can't kick butt. Naruto nodded in understanding. He assumed that this affinity was similar to an elemental affinity, which meant that it was inheritable. His brow furrowed as he realized that he could have an affinity for medical ninjutsu as well due to his familial relations. Wow, I wonder if I could use medical ninjutsu as well. Naruto thought to himself, making sure to sound a little bit more like a child than he actually was. Anyone can use medical ninjutsu as long as they have very good chakra control, Shizune explained. It's just the natural talent in the art is usually passed on through a family. Naruto hesitated for a moment before agreeing on his decision. Well, my grandmother and great-grandfather were both skilled at medical ninjutsu. Shizune turned to the boy with a raised eyebrow. And who were they? Tsunade and Hashirama Senju, Naruto said. He knew he could trust Shizune if his grandmother trusted the girl to be her apprentice. What? Shizune screamed in surprise. Tsunade-sama is your grandmother. Apparently being a medical ninja did not make you quiet. Shizune, we don't want all of the elemental nations to know, Tsunade said as she walked into the clearing. Naruto and Shizune were in with Jiraiya right behind her. Yes, Tsunade-sama, Shizune said as she bowed her head in shame. I was just surprised by this revelation. Naruto stared at his grandparents for a moment before turning to his grandfather with a raised eyebrow. Did you propose? Jiraiya's jaw dropped in surprise. How did you? Obasan's face is red and covered in dry tears, which meant something emotional happened. You also have a huge grin on your face, which means you peeked on someone, which is unlike due to Obasan being here, or you're really happy about something, Naruto explained, using the information he had gathered by looking at them to deduce a conclusion. Not to mention she has a ring on her finger and you're the only one who is likely to propose to her. Jiraiya sighed and shook his head in disbelief. I should have known. Tsunade was even more surprised than Jiraiya. He's as smart as you said he was. That's nothing, Jiraiya chuckled. He's smarter than most of the Naras in Konoha. Yes, Gaki, I used the opportunity of this mission to meet the love of my life, Jiraiya said to the boy. Sue me. Okay, I give my permission, Naruto consented. I do have a question though. Naruto turned to his grandmother with confused eyes. Obasan, why did you leave my dad up for adoption? Tsunade was not expecting that question and choked back a noise of surprise. Nevertheless, she decided to answer the question and she bent down to be eye level with her grandson. Jiraiya-kun and I got together one night after the Second Shinobi World War before we went our separate ways. We didn't see each other for another 3 years, Tsunade explained. We were 27 then. I was a dumb kid who just got through my first war. I had lost my brother that year and my father and uncle only a few years earlier. I had begun a drinking and gambling problem to cope with all of this. I wasn't prepared to care for a baby, she continued. So I left him at the Konoha orphanage, told Hiruzen-sensei that I had found a baby on the border of Hai no Kuni and left. In hindsight, I know it was a bad decision. So much could have changed if I took the responsibility to find Jiraiya and raise our son. Tsunade wiped a tear from her eye as she stared straight into her grandson's ocean blue eyes. So please, forgive me. Naruto was silent and for a second so was the forest. There was no chirping of birds, no rustling of leaves. The shadows cast by the trees seemed to grow darker and there was an almost unnoticeable vibration in the ground as all of nature responded to its master's emotions. Naruto took a deep breath before sighing, the tension slowing disappearing before he looked up with tired blue eyes. Fine, I forgive you, Naruto said with a sad smile. You owe me ramen though. Tsunade gave a small emotional laugh before looking up at Jiraiya. I have not eaten Ichiraka ramen in over 10 years. Jiraiya raised an eyebrow. Are we going home now? We're going back to Konoha? Shizen asked in surprise when she saw her master nod yes. Naruto grinned. Yep, we're going home. Itachi Nizen. Itachi turned around to see a small boy running toward him. He and the boy shared many facial features with their pitch black hair and similar facial features. The only major difference was the crimson-red eyes that Itachi had compared to the onyx that his younger brother had. Itachi's eyes reverted back to a similar onyx as he looked at his brother. Hello Sasuke-kun. Can you train me? Sasuke asked excitedly as he began to hop from foot to foot. Ota-san just showed me the katan, Gokakyu, fire release, fireball jutsu, and I thought I could get some help with it. Itachi gave a sad smile. I'm sorry Sasuke-kun, but I have to go report to the Hokage. Sasuke's face fell as he hung his head slightly. Okay Itachi Nizen, I understand. Itachi knelt down onto one knee and placed 2 fingers to his younger brother's forehead, giving him a light poke. Maybe next time Sasuke-kun. With that, Itachi disappeared in a murder of crows before reappearing on top of the academy. The man in front of him did not even need to turn around to know he was there. Hello Itachi-kun, the Hokage said. He pulled out his pipe and lit it with a simple katan jutsu before taking a puff. Itachi bowed his head in respect. Hokage-sama. Hiruzen nodded and gestured for the boy to stand up. I have a request of you. Of course Hokage-sama, Itachi said. Anything. Good to hear that, the Hokage said as he threw the young Uchiha a small scroll. I would like for you to go to this training ground in 2 days. Itachi cracked the seal with a burst of chakra and began to read the contents with a raised eyebrow. What is this? Hiruzen paused as he turned away to face the mountain in which 3 faces besides his own were carved. A small smile crossed his face and his eyes twinkled with amusement. It's time for a test, the Sandaime Hokage said. It's time to see if a new name is worthy to be among the legends. The end. Alright, that's it for today's video guys. Let me know in the comments section how was the story, and also don't forget to like, share and subscribe. I will meet you in another video. Peace out.